We are going to talk about the very basics of the chakra system. I'm going to go ahead and pull up, got a little visual for us. Get started in just a minute. So, one of the very interesting, but very frustrating aspects of the chakra system is that there are so many different opinions as far as what each chakra means and what color is it and where is it located. So I'm going to really talk about the basics of what a chakra is. We're going to talk about kind of the most popular systems that we know of, which is the 7 chakra systems. There are some other systems out there that are a 5 chakra system, and there's some of them that are up to 10 to 12 chakra systems. Now, what a chakra is, if you think of everything in existence as being the basics, the ground substance of everything in existence is this field of potential and possibility. And within this field are all of these different waves, all of these different movements. So think of existence as like underwater, and underwater there's all these different waves coming together. And when these waves cross each other and they impact each other right at that point where they impact, right at that crossing point, that's what we would consider like a molecule or an atom or a particle. Okay, so there's all of this different movement throughout the universe. And when that movement collides together, that's what we would experience as a physical object. Okay, and our body is exactly the same. So I really like this picture over here because if you notice, there's all of these different waveforms that are moving through all these different curved lines, but they cross, they come together right at very specific points, and at those very specific points there is a large amount of potential, there's a large amount of energy that is actualizing, that's come from potential into kinetic, but there's still a lot more potential energy around those cross points than there is in other points. Okay, so each one of these points here along the spine is considered a different chakra. Okay, and if we go deeper into that, the chakras are not just one dimensional. Okay, they are more than just 360 degrees in dimension. So it's more than just a sphere. They actually exist simultaneously in multiple different dimensions outside of the 3 dimensions that we typically have the ability to experience. And those 3 dimensions would be height, width, depth, and then the 4th dimension is time. The chakras, because they are potentialities, they exist beyond just those 4 basic dimensions. So think of a chakra as being not only height, not only width, not only depth, a specific point in time, but also in more than one place at a time. Now, a lot of these systems, like the acupuncture system, a lot like the Ayurvedic system out of India, there are, these major energy hubs, these major areas of potential, but there are thousands and thousands of other areas, smaller little vortexes where all this energy is spinning in. Okay, and that spinning in energy, not only is it located normally thousands of tiny little points throughout the body, but if we get an injury or we get a new idea or a new experience, there can be a temporary new chakra, a new kind of vortex of energy that's coming in. So not only are these chakras existing in more than 4 dimensions, but there's the movement dimension also. So there's the there is a flowing in and a flowing out that can happen simultaneously. There's the clockwise motion and the counterclockwise motion that can happen simultaneously depending on what's going on. Okay. On top of that, there are different layers to the chakra. So the farther out above these energy centers you're going, the more you are going to pick up on kind of more recent information and energy that's being integrated. The closer into the body that you go into these chakras, the more you're digging into the past. And some energy practitioners claim that at the very, very bottom level is actually the connection that you have to quote unquote past lives. Now, this whole past life thing, it can be a little bit controversial. The way that I look at it, energy can never be created nor destroyed. So all of the energy that you're utilizing to create this physical structure, that energy has engaged in a lot of other physical structures before you. Every molecule, every atom, every subatomic particle that makes up the physical structure of your body, it's been involved in a lot of other structures before this. So all of that memory, if you will, all of that information comes along with what you are experiencing right here and right now, the energy and the potential that you're utilizing to create the experience that you have. So there's a couple different sources of information that I would recommend everybody kind of write this down. I should have put this in the presentation, but I didn't. And one of them is going to be, and we'll talk about her in just a minute, is Caroline Myss. Another one that I've gotten a lot of information from, but I didn't necessarily link anything and I didn't use any of her information directly, is a practitioner by the name of Donna Eden. Now, Donna Eden has the ability to perceive these different potential fields, these different electromagnetic fields. She has the ability to perceive them not only visually, but also kinesthetically, the way that she feels about it. And her husband, I forget what his name is, he's a psychologist. They've written a lot of books together explaining the interaction or the correlation between what's happening electromagnetically in the fields around us and what's going on psychologically in it. Why do we think the way that we think? Why do we feel the way that we feel? Why do we experience the world that we experience? And it's very, very multi-layered, just like these chakras. Yes, thank you, Connie. Caroline Myss, and we'll talk about her in just a minute, and Donna Eden. So that's really what these chakras are. They are like a hub of energy and information processing. And anywhere we have a hub of information, energy, and processing, structurally, we have a part of the nervous system. Okay. So way, way down here at the root chakra, at the bottom of the spine, we have our coccygeal and our sacral ganglion, the plexus, all the nerve roots that come out of that area of the spine, they come together. And at the very, very bottom, we have the very bottom portion of our sympathetic, our fight, flight, or freeze nervous system. And that nervous system exists as a chain of ganglion that run down the spine. And at the very, very bottom, that chain comes together in what's called the ganglion empire, which is the very, very bottom point, which sits right in front of and right above your tailbone. This is one of the main reasons whenever you're getting adjusted, if you get adjusted by a really good chiropractor, and if you're a member of Organic Living Chiropractic, whenever I tell you that we're working on the tailbone, because that survival instinct, that very bottom end of the chain where the chain comes together, has a lot to do with survival. So anytime that area is being excessively stimulated or it's not happy, we're going to be experiencing a little bit more fear, a little bit more shame, a little bit more guilt than is necessary in order to keep us alive. So this very, very bottom root chakra, a lot of the information that's processed down here has a lot to do with baseline survival and kind of how do we fit in to the protective structures around us, our tribe. All right. This second chakra over here is going to correlate with our lumbar plexus, and it's going to correlate with what's called the lower mesenteric plexus, which innervates a lot of the sexual organs, and it innervates a lot of the lower portion of the digestive system, in which we're expelling all the things that do not serve us. Okay, so this area of the nervous system, it has a lot to do with processing one-on-one relationships. Is this one-on-one relationship? What can I either create with it, or how do I need to shift things because it's a negative thing, and it's negatively impacting my survival. So the relationship between individuals, this second, what's called the creativity chakra, has a lot to do with the nervous system of the lumbar plexus and the lower mesenteric plexus. Okay, a little bit above that, we have the third chakra, which is considered to be kind of the identity chakra. This chakra is correlated with the part of our nervous system that is called the upper mesenteric plexus. And this innervates not only the upper portion of our digestive tract, which is what are the things that we need to take in and incorporate into who we are, into the structure, but it also has a lot to do with our detoxification, the liver, and the spleen, which is a major immune organ. So this third chakra has a lot to do with identity. Who are we uniquely? Who is this sense of self, this me, in contrast with the not me, which is the second chakra, the individual relationships, and the survival portion. How do I fit into my tribe? Okay. Above that, we have the cardiopulmonary plexus, which innervates the heart and the lungs, literally the breath of life, the heart, the passion. This one has a lot to do with our ability to receive and to send love. And if this area is fully on board, and if this portion of the nervous system, which has a lot to do with also our vagus nerve, is fully on board, then our capacity to achieve unconditional love, which means love outside of protecting my identity and protecting my survival and protecting my ability to create myself. This cardiopulmonary plexus, this heart chakra, this is the union in Taoist practice. They call this the union of heaven and earth. Earth is all of the survival-based systems below the heart. Heaven is all the thriving-based systems above the heart. Both of those culminate right here at the center of the chest, okay? Above that, we have the brachial plexus, the pharyngeal, the thyroid, the thymus plexus, and this has a lot to do with us being able to truly express ourselves. This is the portion of the nervous system that innervates our arms. This is how we engage with the world. This is how we get our unique voice out to the world. The thyroid gland is a major junction or split in our energy utilization, in our metabolism. How are we going to use the energy that we have at our disposal? Are we going to use it to grow and develop and become wiser and become stronger? Or are we going to use it for stress chemistry, which is to survive and just make things happen in the moment? Okay, so this really has a lot to do with us expressing who we truly are into the world. Above that, you're going to have the junction, and again, this is where things get a little bit controversial, because everybody will kind of relate this to a lot of different things. But the way that I see it is you have the union between your pituitary gland and your pineal gland, which is going to be more towards the base of the skull, right over here, right in between your eyes. And this is going to have a lot to do with being able to see things beyond just the physical, okay? Being able to see the meaning behind things, being able to see the bigger picture, being able to see how the larger structure, the bigger picture, fits into what our physical senses can actually perceive and pick up. And at the very, very top, you're going to have the big portion of the brain, the prefrontal cortex. Now, whenever we do like functional MRI studies of like monks and master meditators and people that have practiced getting into the state where they can experience the oneness and the unity of of all of existence. It's the very, very upper portion of the brain that seems to be much more tied to what we would call spiritual experiences. So this crown chakra, this is where we experience the connection to the cosmos, okay, or the connection to God and all. All right. So each one of these different hubs of information processing, like I said, they are parts of the nervous system that are emitting very, very strong electromagnetic fields. Now, there was a researcher in the 80s, and I'm forgetting her name right now, but one of the things that she did is she hooked up electrode sensors to the skin on all portions of the body. And one of the things that they found is these areas of the skin directly over these hubs of the nervous system, what would classically be called the chakra centers, these areas were pulsating at a rate that was like thousands of hertz per second, whereas other areas in the body, they would be 60 hertz or 50 hertz or 150 hertz, hundreds of hertz per second. But these areas right here were going much, much faster. There was a lot more that was happening at these centers. So like I said, there is an energetic component, an electromagnetic component. There's a structural component, which is a portion of the nervous system. And there's also a psychological and a spiritual component to these. Now, one of the reasons, and I'm picking this up from Donna Eden, one of the reasons that the colors of each one, there's kind of a classic color to each one. However, a lot of people disagree on that. A lot of people that can perceive these different centers, they disagree on what colors each one are. And Donna Eden says that she has never, ever, ever, ever seen anyone who has their centers with these exact colors in it. Now, a lot more people may have more green around their heart centers. A lot more people may have red around their heart centers. But there's a wide range that we can experience, and each individual, each unique person has a specific way that they're set up, has a specific way that their body is processing this information. That electromagnetic field is unique for them. And so not only are they going to have their own unique colors, but every person that's perceiving this is also perceiving it through their information processing. So they are literally perceiving it through their colors. So there's really no way to tell what a normal, healthy chakra looks like or is for each individual, because number one, no one has experienced that because we're all experiencing it through our own unique filters. And number two, everyone's unique. Okay, so take all this information in as a broad generality rather than a hard and fast rule, because there is no hard and fast rule for everybody. There's a lot of wiggle room that goes into this. So like I said before, these chakras, they exist in more than just the three dimensions that we know of. So each one of these centers, the information that it processes in the electromagnetic field that's around it can be measured differently throughout the body. Okay, so a lot of whenever people see auras, okay, whenever they see the energy field around it, that has a strong correlation to the energy field that's going on the inside. So the aura, the energy field, the electromagnetic field that's closest to the body is going to be related much more to that root chakra. The one farther out from that is going to be that second, the third, the fourth, the fifth, the sixth, and the seventh, as far out in these different etheric bodies. So like I said, we can't see these as just one location on the body because they are in multiple locations simultaneously, which is hard for us to perceive because we do perceive things in just four dimensions. Okay, so like I said, each one of these hubs not only can be measured out in front of the body, but it also can be measured out behind the body. Now, the chakra system is not just from India. Okay, there's a lot of different traditions that have kind of someone along the line has been able to experience these different ways of processing information and has kind of mapped those out. So not only is this very, very common in Tibet and China and India, but also in mystical Judaism, which this is called the Kabbalah tree of life. And that tree of life is related to the different chakras. And as a matter of fact, Caroline Myss, has made a correlation between the different chakras and the different sacraments, the different holy rituals and celebrations of ancient Christianity, which most of us would now know as Catholicism. So that very, very root chakra again has to do with tribal power and survival and security. The message that we want to gain from that chakra, if that chakra is healthy and functioning, is that we all are one, we all are community, we all are in this together. And it's very, very interesting that that very root chakra is related to that concept, the oneness concept, but from a survival standpoint, whereas the crown chakra is also related to that concept, but it's related to it from much more of a spiritual sense. So again, as above, so below, as below, so above. Okay. And the sacrament that that would go along with would be the sacrament of baptism. I'll move this over real quick. There we go. Okay. And the Kabbalah tree of life, that would go to the very, very bottom. And I am not even going to try to pronounce this, kind of butcher it, but it has to do with that connection to life, the rooting down of the tree of life. That sacral chakra, the second chakra, has a lot to do with the power of relationships between individuals, one-on-one. What we want to do whenever that is fully functional, fully on board, what we get is this sense of being able to truly honor, accept each other, accept one another as the unique individuals, the unique expressions of creation that we are. Okay, this correlates with the sacrament of communion in Catholicism and ancient Christianity, and it correlates with that second part of the tree of life, which is the what is that? Thoughts or facts of creation. Interesting. I have no idea what that says. But in creation is not just one thing. It's really the interaction between things. Okay, if there's just one thing and there's nothing else, there's no relationship, there's no way to observe. There literally would be nothing in existence if there was just one thing. So there's one thing having a relationship with the many different parts of itself, creating, in a sense, kind of two things. Then we have the solar plexus, which is our personal power, our identity. We want to get to the point where we're fully able to honor ourselves. And this is the sacrament of confirmation. And the tree of the Kabbalah tree of life has to do with integrity and endurance. Okay, and then we have the heart chakra, which is our emotional power. Love is the divine power. Love is the connecting, the binding force between those two things that makes up the ability for existence to exist. Okay, and the sacrament of this is marriage, and the Kabbalah tree of life has to do with love and compassion. Okay, then we have our throat chakra, which is our power of will, our ability to reach out in the world and enact, to have an impact, to have a voice. Okay, and this has to, whenever we get this fully online, this helps us to be able to surrender our survival-based, personal, individualized, I am this unique thing out in this massive, cosmos that is not for me. We're able to surrender that into the divine will. What is the best for all of creation, including myself, rather than how much can I get just for myself? This is the sacrament of confession, and this has to do with mercy and judgment. And then the third eye is the power of the mind, our ability to experience the world beyond just what our physical senses say. And whenever this is fully engaged, fully on board, we're connected with it. Leads us to the ability to seek only truth, to be able to pierce all of the illusions and identify all of the false and half-truths that our sensory experiences can present to us. This is the sacrament of ordination for the priesthood, and this has to do with divine wisdom and understanding in the tree of life of the Kabbalah. And then the very top, the crown chakra, is our spiritual connector, and the ability that we gain, whenever this is fully online, is the ability to fully live and fully experience this present moment. Okay, and the sacrament of the very, very last sacrament in Catholicism, which is the burial or the blessing of the sick right before someone dies, or that extreme unification sacrament. And this has to do with our connection to the divine in the Kabbalah tree of life. So isn't it interesting that whenever we experience through art, all of the different religious figures and holy figures, people that we would say are depicted in these arts as being somebody who is very, very much connected to the divine, isn't it very interesting that throughout the world we see this kind of emanation from this crown chakra? So again, this whole chakra system, even though it's been developed a lot out of India and China, this is stuff that's been experienced all throughout the world, all throughout history, and all throughout mankind, and shown up in a lot of very, very interesting ways. So each one of these different chakras, has these different components to it, has these different generalizations to it. In these generalizations, like I said, there's a lot of conflicting information because everybody experiences these different. So just because something shows up or works one way for one person doesn't necessarily mean it's going to be the same thing for another person. So our root chakra, this is at the very, very bottom. Okay, right in between where our legs connect to our pelvis, right in what's called the perineum, which is going to be just behind the genitals and just in front of the anus or the rectum. Okay, right at that place, right where the legs come together with the pelvis. Okay, and this is going to have a lot to do with our ability to survive, our basic instincts, and the sound that has been associated with this. The color red has been associated with this, but that may not be true for everybody. But the sound that's been associated is the sound lum. Lum. And we've done this exercise before in the past. And then you move up into the sacral chakra. The typical color that's associated with this, again, although this may not be true for everybody, is going to be the color orange. This has a lot to do with creativity and relationships between individuals. And this one has the sound of yum, yum. No, excuse me, vom with a V, not yum. Vom with a V. And then you move up into the solar plexus. This one traditionally or classically is considered to be a yellow color. And the sound that's associated with this is going to be rum with an R, rum. Okay, and we move up into the heart center, which is classically considered to be a green color, and the sound is yum, yum. And then this one I think is really, really cool because it's like, oh yeah, when we get into the heart and we really experience life through this unconditionally loving perspective, life is yummy. Everything is, yeah, you just want to take it all in and be like, yes, I love all of this. Okay, and then we move up into the throat center, and this is traditionally considered to be kind of a blue type color, and this one is hum, hum, and which I think is very interesting because whenever somebody clears their throat is typically a hum type of sound. And then we move into the third eye, and this is going to be over here. This is the om, although I've heard it as a shum type of sound. And then at the very, very top in this chart, this is the silence after the om. The third eye is typically considered to be like purple or a violet color. The very, very top one is either considered to be really, really intensely bright purple or bright white. And again, there's a lot of conflicting evidence or opinions around this. I have studied this very, very crown chakra to be the sound of om, which in Sanskrit is the universal sound of all of existence together. So, like I said, take that information for whatever it is. Now, one of the things I want to bring to your awareness is if you look at this heart chakra, if you look at the green heart chakra over here, you'll notice that there's two triangles that are converging here. There's the upper triangle that's converging, the upper centers, and then there's the lower triangle that's converging, and they're merging together right here at that heart. Okay, the triangle is one of the most simplistic but stable structures. Okay, if you just have a line, okay, that line in and of itself is not going to be very stable. If you have two lines coming together, those two lines are not going to be able to come together. Really, the first level of stability is whenever you have those three lines coming together, and whenever they're pushing against each other, they're holding all of that space together. So one of the symbolisms that the triangle represents is the basic form of stability, and is the basic form of strength and the basic form of equilibrium or balance. Now, a lot of times we, especially here in the West, we will kind of glorify these upper chakras because these are the ones that most people would consider that when they're open, that individual will have the ability to seemingly interact with these kind of like mystical powers, like being able to see things before they come, being able to know things before they come, being able to see the different interactions of the energy fields. Now, these are the ones that, the very, very top chakras associated with bliss. So the upper chakras are typically where a lot of focus gets to. However, I don't really recommend spending much time working on the upper chakras. It's the lower chakras that really need the vast majority of our attention. Okay, if you think of this from a nervous system standpoint, if the information that's coming in is all being processed at the very, very root center, which is life is not stable, life is not safe. I don't really know what's going on. I don't really know what fits in. I don't really feel comfortable being able to be here. What our body is going to end up doing is our body is going to take all of that potential, all of that energy, and it's going to use it to create the chemistry of survival, like cortisol and like adrenaline, and all of those things that keep us hyper vigilant and keep us super alert about all of the different possible dangers that could be happening around us or in the future. Okay, the more energy we are using to create the chemistry of survival, the less potential we will have to create the chemistry of love and the chemistry of bliss and the chemistry of peace. So in a sense, unless the lower chakras are satiated, unless they are satisfied, unless our nervous system feels that it does not need to process all of the information at that lower level, if we are in survival mode, that has to be taken care of before we can get into thriving mode. Reason being, if you are just blissed out and in love and smelling the roses while a tiger is attacking you, you are not going to have a chance to get your seed to spread your DNA to have offspring again in the future. Okay, so the survival of the species, the survival of the individual takes precedent or takes priority over these upper, more spiritual experiences. And this is kind of counter to what most of us have been taught, which is, this is the most important thing in life. And that may be the most important thing in existence. But as far as life goes, if your survival is not covered, you're not going to be able to sustainably get up into those higher experiences. So one of the things that I like to say and recommend to people is you work the lower chakras. If you work the lower chakras, the lower centers, and make sure that they are happy and on board and fully functional and spinning in the right direction and processing information and not clogged up with all the crap that we've been carrying along with us. If you work the lower chakras, the upper chakras will work you. Okay, so I don't recommend spending a lot of time. The heart chakra is typically the highest that I will go on a regular basis. Not that I'm unaware of these. It's just I don't really go there that often because they're they're the spiritual centers. They're the ones that are connected to a much, much higher power source than just the physical body. So you work that lower triangle, the upper triangle will work you. Okay, so one of my favorite chakra meditations is a Taoist meditation called the microcosmic orbit. Okay, and the microcosmic orbit is the only chakra meditation that I know of that works, that are acknowledges and incorporates both the energetic hubs on the back of the body as well as within the body. And what this does in acupuncture, there are two main meridians. There's the dew meridian and the Ren meridian. I may have those backwards. The creation and the conception meridians, the vessels. These are the first two meridians that are formed whenever the first cell that we come in with right after conception, whenever that cell divides, it creates a circuit. And that first circuit becomes the energy flow from those two basic meridians. And then everything branches out from there. So if that circuit is on, if that circuit is fully flowing, many, many times the other circuits, the other ways that our body flows and processes information and energy, that will kind of take care of itself for the most part. So again, if you focus on the fundamentals, if you focus on the basics, if you focus on the core, on the foundation, it's a lot easier for the details to kind of fall into place, because that's really what life is all about. Life is not supposed to be managed by our educated, focused, conscious willpower. It's supposed to be a relationship between our focused, conscious, educated willpower and all that keeps everything in sync in the universe, which is a lot more than just inside of us. Okay, so let's go ahead and practice this microcosmic orbit meditation. Now, if you want more information about this, I would highly recommend looking up the author Mantak Chia. And if I remember correctly, the way that you spell his name, I'll write this over in chat, is, oh, there it is. If I can, oops, I move this. There we go. His name is Mantakchia. I'm pretty sure his name is Mantak Chia, and he is a Taoist master, a Chinese acupuncture doctor, an herbalist, and he is one of the people that is we would give the most credit for bringing the information of Taoism, of the true Taoist arts and practice, to the West. And he did a lot of his work in the 80s and the 90s. I'm pretty sure he's still around. Haven't seen much from him in a while, though. So one thing that we're going to do is just go ahead and kick back. I would recommend sitting up for this meditation so that you can actively keep the spine straight. Okay, but when you sit up, you want to sit at the very, very edge of the chair, just like you see in this picture, so that your sit bones are right at the edge of the chair. Your thigh is completely horizontal and your knee is completely vertical. Okay, and we're going to do the microcosmic orbit meditation, which is just the main meditation. But there's another portion of this, which is called the macrocosmic meditation, which it does go into the extremities. Okay, but for right now, we're just going to stay at the center. And the first place that we want to start is right behind the belly button. Okay, about an inch below and about an inch inside the belly button. Now, the first thing that we want to do is we want to feel the space around that center. We want to feel the space outside of the body, because remember, these electromagnetic fields, they are much, much larger than the physical body. So we start at this second center because the belly button is that place in which, whenever we were in utero, we were taking in all of the nutrients that we needed from the outside world. So we are going to begin and we are going to end at that original place of receiving. Okay, to get this flow going in our body. So we want to start with the space out and around the belly button. Okay, and we're going to slowly start to experience the space closer and closer, or if that space is kind of closing in to a dot or a pinpoint about an inch below, but about an inch inside the body. All of these places or centers are going to be about an inch underneath the skin. So as you start to feel the space around condensing, becoming more energized all the way in, you're just going to hold your focus. Okay, we're not trying to move energy. We are just holding our focus, and our focus holds energy. Now, after a while of keeping your focus about an inch inside and about an inch below the belly button, you'll start to notice a sensation. It could be like a weight, it could be like a tingling, it could be like a fluffiness, it could be a lot of different sensations. But the second that you get a sensation in this area just by focusing on it, you have achieved the goal. Okay. And then you move on to the next one. Now, for some people who've never experienced anything like this, it may be beneficial to focus on one of these centers for a week or two at a time before you start to get to the place where you start to really notice, oh yeah, there totally is a sensation there. Okay, so take your time, honor where you are in this process, keep the focus right at that center until you start to feel a sensation. Now, whether that's instantly, whether that's an hour, whether that's 2 weeks from now, at some point you will. And when you're ready, you'll move on to the next center. So the next center that we want to move to is going to be right above the pubic bone, probably about 3 to 4 inches below the belly button, but right above the pelvic bone. Okay, and same thing, feel the space around and outside of this center. Experience that space slowly folding or collapsing or beginning smaller and smaller and more intense and more dense until finally ends up as a pinpoint of extreme density, about an inch inside the body, right above the pubic bone or the pelvic bone. And again, just keep the focus right on that inside point. The flow is from the outside to the inside. And after a while, you'll start to notice that there's some sort of sensation there. Whatever that sensation is, once you experience that sensation, then you just move on to the next center. Okay, this is a super powerful but super simplistic exercise. And it's so simplistic that in the beginning, it's like, well, this can't be doing anything. But if you do this for long enough, I promise you, you will notice a very large change in your life and your energy level. Okay. So the next area that we're going to move to is that kind of root center, that root chakra, which is at the perineum. Okay. Which is right behind the genitals and right in front of the anus or the rectum. Okay, that piece of skin right where the legs come in and meet the pelvis. Same thing, experience the space all around that center outside the body, and then imagine or experience that space either folding in or condensing in, or just suddenly getting a little bit smaller, and then a little bit smaller, and then a little bit smaller, until it goes into a very, very fine point, about an inch inside the pelvis, inside the body. And again, the second that you notice a sensation there, just revel in that sensation, and then we move on. Okay. Now, I recommend anybody who has not gotten any of the sensations at these 3 points so far, just go ahead and kick back and relax and listen. Going on beyond this without any sensation is not really going to do you much good. Okay. Because the most challenging area is this next spot, which is right at the very center of the sacrum, that very, very, almost bottom bone, right above the tailbone, but at the very bottom of the spine, right in between the two hip bones. Okay. Right in the middle of that sacrum. Okay. This one can be one of the biggest challenges. If you can get into this spot, if you can experience a sensation in this spot, nothing else is really going to be an issue after that. Okay. So take your time with this. And again, imagine all of the space behind you, all of the space right around that level of the sacrum, and imagine that space getting smaller and smaller, flowing inward, folding inward, condensing in until eventually it is just a tiny, tiny spot at the very center of the sacrum, about an inch inside the body. Okay. Sometimes it helps to kind of caress or rub this area with a cloth or with a feather, just to get, because this is not an area that we're used to feeling. This is an area we sit on a lot. It's an area that most of us are very numb in. So this one, if you haven't had any sensations in the other areas, this one might be the one that you end up working on the most. Okay. But if you have a sensation in this area, that's all we need. And we're going to move on to the next area. The next area, the very, very bottom of the spine, the very, very top of the sacrum, you're going to move about 2 to 3 vertebrae up. Okay, this is going to be right in between the fourth and the third vertebrae in the back, right at that, the very, very center of the curve of the low back. Okay. And again, same thing, experience the space around this center. The space around extends behind you, but it also extends in front of you. And experience that space like a bubble, slowly getting smaller and smaller and collapsing in and collapsing in and collapsing in until eventually it's a tiny, tiny point right on the inside, the very, very center of the spine itself, about an inch below the skin, right at the curve of that low back. Okay. And once you experience a sensation there, then we're going to move up. Now, the low back curves in, but then it starts to curve back up. And right when it starts to curve back up, the very top of that curve, okay, which is going to be between the 11th and the 12th vertebrae, again, same thing, experience that bubble of awareness, that bubble of space around this center, experience that space getting smaller and smaller and smaller and more dense, more condensed, folding in, flowing in, until eventually you notice a sensation about an inch inside the body, right at the very, very center of the spine. And the second that you notice a sensation, you just move on to the next one. And the next one is going to be right behind the heart, right in between the shoulder blades, right between the fourth and the fifth thoracic vertebrae. Okay, same thing. Notice that center. Now, this one can be a little bit of a challenge because most of us are used to focusing on our heart center from the front. So in the beginning, it can kind of be a little tricky for the mind to experience the heart center, but experience it from the back. So imagine all of that space around the heart condensing, getting smaller, folding in, flowing in, until eventually it's a point, a very, very dense point right behind the heart at the center of the spine, about an inch inside the body from the back. And the second that you notice a sensation, you already got it. Taoism is all about efficiency. No need to waste time and energy. And now move to the very, very center of the neck, but the center of the neck in the back. So right between the third cervical vertebrae, fourth cervical vertebrae. Again, experience all of the sensation, all of the air, all of the space around this part of the body like a giant bubble. And that giant bubble is getting smaller and smaller and smaller and smaller until it's condensing into a point about an inch below the skin in the back at the very, very center of the neck. And now we're going to move to the very, very base of the skull, the very, very back of the skull. This is called the Jade Palace. Okay. And now we're going to experience all of the space around this area condensing in until you notice a little point about an inch inside the skull at the very, very base of the back of the head. Now, at this point, just because I wanted to have the focus be just on the sensation, okay? But this is normally a thing that you would do this entire time. But for right now, I didn't bring it up until this point, but at this point, it is going to get pretty important. So at this point, what I want you to do is I want you to take your tongue and put the tongue on the roof of your mouth, okay? There's 3 different spots that you can choose, okay? There is the very, very beginner or basic spot, which is going to be right behind the teeth. Okay, keep the tip of the tongue touching the very roof of the mouth, right behind the teeth. Okay, there is and I believe this is the fire spot, and I might have the fire and the wind mixed up, and I'm not actually sure. But the next spot is going to be the very top of the roof. So if you take your tongue and you drag the tip of your tongue backwards, you'll notice that the roof of the mouth will go up a little bit, right at the very, very upper portion of that slope upwards. Okay, that's going to be, I believe, the wind point. Okay, and the very last, or the most advanced point, okay, be careful with this one because this one can really make the tongue tired if you're not used to it, is if you keep dragging the tongue back farther on the roof of the mouth, it'll dip down again into like a little lump or bump. And then behind that lump, it starts getting really soft. Whereas before that lump, it's hard. This is the junction between the hard palate and the soft palate. Putting the tip of the tongue right on the tip or just a little bit behind that lump, this is the water spot. Ideally, in Taoist practice, this is what we want to work up to. But like I said, this can make the tongue very tired. It can release a lot of saliva. It can be very, very disruptive in the beginning. So just find one of those places that's comfortable, one of those places that's effortless to hold your tongue there. If you're struggling, if you're striving, if you're using effort and work, this is not really going to have any benefit at this point. Okay, so find one of those places that you can place your tongue. Now move that sensation, move the focus from the very back of the skull to the very, very top of the head. And imagine the very, very top of the head is that big crown aura, that big halo that you see in all the artwork. Okay, and imagine that getting smaller and smaller and smaller and condensing in and flowing in until it's a point right at the very, very top of the skull. When you have a sensation at the top of the skull, then go ahead and move on to the next point. And the next point is going to be right in between the eyebrows, right at the very bottom of the forehead. Okay, keeping the tongue, because this is where it gets really important, on the roof of the mouth. Okay, feel all the space collapsing, feel all the space condensing in. Okay, until you notice that that point right between the eyebrows, there's a sensation there, a buzz, a heaviness, a density, a flow, a lightness, a coolness, a warmness, some type of sensation where you're like, yep, I definitely feel that area about an inch inside my body. And now, once you feel that, okay, in your mind, you're going to trace down from that point about an inch inside your body, down through behind your nose to the very tip of your tongue, down the back of your tongue, all the way to the center of your throat in the front. Okay, and imagine all of the space around that throat center. Imagine that space condensing and flowing in, okay, all the way till you get to the very, very center, about an inch inside. And once you feel that sensation in the throat, for some people, this will come on very, very quickly, especially if you have like a hyperactive thyroid. It'll be like, oh, well, there's a lot of energy in this area. For some people, it might be a real challenge, like if you have a hypoactive thyroid. So just play around. Each one of these spots is a lot of benefit for you to spend a daily practice of weeks on end just with one of these spots, connecting with it, developing a relationship with it. But once you feel that sensation in your throat, now we're going to drop to the very front of the heart center, right at the very center of the chest. Feel all the space around the body, around the chest, and allow that sensation of that space to flow, to fold, to spontaneously shrink all the way in until you notice a sensation about an inch inside the body, right at the center of the chest, keeping the tongue at the roof of the mouth. And now moving to the solar plexus, once you've had a sensation of the heart, move to the solar plexus. This is just gonna be a few inches down, right at the very, very top of where the ribs come together. This is soft stomach, and then it gets hard breastbone. Right at that junction is the solar plexus. Again, experiencing all of the space around this, keeping the tongue at the roof of the mouth. Have all that space come in, collapse, shrink down into a tiny little point or dot about an inch inside the solar plexus. And once you feel a sensation there, dropping back to right where we began. Okay, right below the belly button and right inside the belly button. Experience all of that space collapsing, flowing, shrinking right in until there's a sensation again, right at that original place of receiving, of nourishment. Okay. And once we've had an experience, once we have a sensation for each one of these, okay, keeping the tongue at the roof of our mouth, then we're going to go through the process of experiencing all of them simultaneously. And you start off with just the navel, and then you move to the navel and the pubic bone, and you move from the navel and the pubic bone and the perineum and the sacrum, and all the way up and around until you can feel that entire circuit. You can feel the interconnection between all of those points. But again, we don't necessarily want to do this until we've had an experience of all of these points as individuals. Then we start working with them as a community. So, does anybody have any questions or comments about any of this? I hope this was helpful. Like I said, it's really challenging to talk too much about the chakra system because there's so much conflicting information out there, because everyone is unique and everyone experiences things differently. So go ahead and raise your hand if you have any questions. Go ahead and type it into the chat. If nobody has any questions, oh, we got Amy. Go ahead and unmute yourself, Amy, and what you got?
Okay. Where would be the best place to find that meditation? Should you just Google it, or is there?
Yeah, if you Google Men Talk Chia, and again,
Okay.
I wrote his name in the chat,
Right.
and you Google microcosmic orbit. He's got
Okay.
a lot of videos out. He's got some YouTube stuff out. Yeah, Barbara just put in a link, www.mentalkchia.com, microcosmic orbit. It's a really simple one to go through. Again, the key to this, the key to any Taoist meditation, is the simplicity.
Okay. Okay, great. Thank you.
Anybody else? What does extreme lightheadedness mean? Well, it really depends on when you experience that, Lisa. Extreme lightheadedness after this means that you have been very, very disconnected for a very, very long time. If you felt a lot during this meditation and there was a lot of sensation and then a lot of lightheadedness afterwards, my recommendation is just go lay down outside, allow yourself to get grounded, because your body probably needs to do a lot of work now that you've been in a sense kind of connected in a way to yourself that it's hasn't been connected in a while. Extreme lightheadedness At certain points, that means that those points you have been very, very fractured in. You've been very kind of going against your natural flow. And by putting your focus at these different points, developing a relationship between these different points, you're pulling the energy back into a normal flow, which is then going to allow your body to be able to make some changes. So you'll probably need to relax and lay down and rest. If you were pushing into this, now that's something a little bit different. If you were really struggling and efforting and trying for any of these different spots, that could also create some lightheadedness, because that would mean that you were probably going against your natural flow. So the whole point of this exercise, the whole magic, the way that this works is that energy follows focused awareness and attention. So just by placing your focused awareness attention into these individual energy and information hubs, you will be able to get more energy in a more sustainable way to these different centers. But like I said, when that happens, your body might need to do stuff. And if your body needs to do stuff, it's going to tell you, hey, stop, slow down, relax, lay down. So if you're feeling lightheaded at any one of these points, just relax. Keep your focus there, lay down, and I bet you your body's going to do some pretty interesting things. And I don't know if I would spend more time on those points of lightheadedness, Lisa. I would just kind of make a mental note that this one, there's something going on with this one that's not too happy. We don't want to focus on where the problem is. We don't want to focus on where the discomfort is. We want to focus on what's working. We want to focus on where the energy is. The more energized the areas that work are, the more energized what's functioning and where the energy is, the more that's going to expand and overflow into the areas that kind of need more energy. So I would say it's more important to focus on the ones that there's a lot of energy in, focus on the ones that are easy and effortless, and don't ignore the other ones, but they're just not the place to put a tremendous amount of time and energy. Okay, anybody else? You are so welcome. We got another. Go for it, Amy. Unmute yourself.
Can you, oh, just a second. Can you hear me?
It's a little bit choppy.
Okay, can you hear me, Tab?
Yes, there we go. Now
okay. What did Barbara say that website was? I don't see that.
Oh, it's www.mantalkchia.com.
Okay, great. Thank you.
/microcosmic orbit. So everybody, whenever you're typing into chat, right above chat, you will see a little blue square that says to all panelists. If we're typing in something that we want everyone to see, up underneath that, when we click that, you can either do to all panelists, which means Connie and I will be able to see it, or you can do the one right below that, which is all panelists and attendees.
Oh, okay, great.
Yeah, and I don't.
Thank you.
Oh, yep. Connie and I have actually been typing in chats back and forth just to each other. So we'll have to shift that. Okay, let's do the rest of this. Mantalk Chia. Okay, that's the first one. And then what did Donna Eden and Caroline Miss. There we go. So these are the names that I would look up. Mantalk Chia, Donna Eden, and Caroline Miss.
I had those in the panelists and attendees once.
You did?
Yeah. On my side, they say they are.
Oh, yeah, from your side. Okay, I'm the one that's just screwing it up.
I've done it a couple of times, and then I just retype it again.
Yep, Connie's got it going on. Not surprised.
Sometimes.
All right, everybody. So unless there's any more questions, I love you. Thank you so much for joining us, and we will see you guys tomorrow.
Bye-bye.